here with Moly Outdoors. We are now a couple of days into springtime, and one of my favorite opportunities really is kicking on, and that is springtime trout fishing. Our year-round lakes are getting stocked up now with their first releases of fish. This is a perfect time for you guys of all ages to get out and enjoy the great fisheries here that we have. So I want to show you guys today a little bit of some basic bank fishing rigs that'll help you get set up on the water to be successful. The first thing we're going to talk about here is rods. There are so many different types of rods out there, from super expensive to super cheap, but frankly for trout fishing you don't need anything too fancy. You just need something that gets the job done. So I'm going to showcase to you a very simple way to do this and how to rig it up my way. So basically, one of the best ways to catch recently stocked trout is going to be with Powerbait. A lot of you know Powerbait is super easy to use, and I'm going to showcase you how to rig it up. But first we got to talk about the rods. So you want something for trout that has a little bit of flexibility, but something that has the ability to play out. Not all these fish are going to be giants. So you want something that really enjoys the fun to catching these trout. And if you're going to be fishing bait, you got to keep in mind that a lot of these fish are probably going to die. A lot of those hooks are going to get really deep in their mouths. More than likely they're not going to survive. So if you're going to be fishing bait, think to be taking these fish home. If you can't take them home, then probably another opportunity would be to fishing lure baits so you can release the fish. But we're talking about bait, so I'm going to be bringing these fish home. Now, in Washington State, you have to keep in mind, any fish that you encounter with bait, whether it's released or not, counts towards your limit of 5. So if that's the case, then you got to keep in mind that too. But for what we're going to do here today, showcasing you the rod. First I got in front of me here is probably my always go-to trout setup. This happens to be a Quantum Teton trout rod. It's actually designed for the trout fishing itself. And this is a 7-foot light action rod. I love this thing because it is so light, parabolic. I can cast it a country mile. And I got it paired up with a 1000 size Sienna Shimano reel. This whole setup, guys, with 4-pound test line on here, cost me about $40. So you can get out of trout fishing without spending a ton. They actually have a bunch of pre-packaged riggings that you can go buy that already come with everything you need. But if you're looking for something that performs a little bit better than maybe one of those pre-packaged stuff, I highly recommend a rod like this. The little bit more length of the 7-foot will give you a better action to be able to cast further and detect a little few more bites. So I love this type of setup. Now, when I'm powerbait fishing, what I like to do, I rig obviously my line all through the guides, set that up, but I usually run a basic standard rig that you may be familiar with. And as we get into the actual rigging of the powerbait and the leader, I'm going to showcase you that on a close-up. But right now, we have our 4-pound test main line. There's 2 different ways you can do this, really. You can do a fixed weight setup, or you can do a sliding. Now, I prefer the sliding because it allows that fish to not detect the weight, and the line keeps moving through. So that fish picks up your bait as it's sitting off the bottom. He can grab it and swim with it for a little ways as he's eating it. Not feeling the weight to spit it back out, you then can see the fish bouncing, set the hook. So there's 2 ways that I like to rig a sliding setup. I can go with an egg style sinker that the line goes straight through. These work great. They come in a lot of different sizes. 3/8 is usually what I start with the 4-pound test and cast it a country mile. Or you can go up to a 1/2 ounce size. Some guys even go 2 1/2 ounces. So it just depends on what you're doing, and a lot of the time too, keep in mind the rod you're using will only hold so much weight. So a 3/8 ounce on this ultralight type style rod I have is perfect. So we got our 4-pound test line. You can just rig your egg sinker straight on the line, just like so, and you can see how it free slides up and down. Then what you would need next is a bumper bead, and I'd recommend something that's either you can see actually where that hole is here. You want a bead that's going to help protect the knot. So a bead size 4, 5, or 6 millimeter is going to be perfect to protect that knot. So you put the bead on and then you tie a swivel on, and after doing so, you're ready for the leader to be next. But generally, I don't use the egg sinkers anymore, partly because one, if I miscalculate on how much weight I need, I have to cut everything off and retie it on, adding more weight. These are also lead, so you have to keep in mind, handling lead over time, if you put it in your mouth, all those stuff with kids, it's generally not that great. So, an alternative that I've found to this is fishing a sliding but interchangeable way with what they call a Insta-Lock. I can show you there closer, but it's a little swivel on top that it's a quick change. So I can really pop this weight out. This happens to be a Dave's Tangle Free, is made with no lead, and is a steel-based weight. So I happen then, once I thread this on, to know that I can quickly change out the weight size if I happen to say, oh man, that's not what I wanted. But it free slides just like the other, makes it super easy, and it's not lead. I personally like being able to not fish lead if I don't have to, because if I'm handling a lot of stuff all day long, I don't want to worry about it. I don't worry about my family. All those different things are keeping in mind. Then you're going to take a little barrel swivel, like I said before, same setup. You're going to tie that barrel swivel on, and you're ready to rock and roll. Super simple rigging base, but this one with the sliding interchangeable weight allows you the freedom to adjust, because sometimes you're going to have an instance where maybe that guy next to you is casting 20 feet further, and that's where all the fish are sitting. So that 1/4 ounce to 3/8 ounce may not be enough. You may need a 1/2 ounce or a 3/4. But you can see here, still free slides, but that bead will help protect my knot. I really love this type of rigging. Now, that's Powerbait. Another really great way, rigging wise, is to set up with a little small float. And I'm just going to showcase this to you guys. We'll go into the rigging more detail. But for a float, it's super easy to do. I happen to have just my little $20 Shimano you can get at any of your local stores. All it is a clear drift float, any type of style, those red and white clip-ons. I like the clear drift because it's a slip float, and I put 2 little rubber bobber stops on each side to make it fixed. I happen to have just 1 split shot, but you can put a little bit more weight, and I have a little jig on the end of here. I'll tip it with a little bit of power bait, and I'll cast this thing out there, and I'll catch fish doing that way. You can also tip it with a worm. A lot of different things work, but I like the little jig here more over a worm just by itself, because this, as you have action on top of the water, the jig's going to move around. That happens to be, and I'll see if I can get closer to the camera, that happens to be a Hoochie King micro squid skirt, and it really does well on trout. So an ultralight setup for this one really works well if you're not wanting to do just straight power bait off the bottom. That's an alternative. So let's take a look now at leader rigging for power bait. Alright guys, so now we're going to talk about here of rigging up for trout and power bait specifically. Like I was talking about, this is what the rigging will look like directly in front of you here, with the swivel, a small little bead, and your quick change rig with a Dave's Tangle Free weight. And for those wanting to know exactly specifically what that is, it's a no knot fast snap. These happen to be the extra large size. There's a couple smaller ones. If you really want them to be smaller, this happens to be the best to fit the weight on. But these are super cheap. I think they're like $1.20. So I like this because I can quickly change out my rig. It still is the same concept as using one of these egg sinkers, but you now have the ability to change out your rig, and it's not lead. So really a nice convenience to that as well. Another thing to think about is your leader. So I'm running 4-pound test main line Generally, you don't want to try and go a little bit heavier leader, because if you break off the leader, you're going to end up breaking the main line if the leader is going to be heavier, because this is going to be the part that breaks first. So you try not to do that, but in this case, I like to run 6-pound fluorocarbon, and this is just your Berkeley Vanish. Great stuff, makes it really easy. I know that I don't have to worry about the fish seeing anything, but what I'll do here is I'll take off about 4 feet of line. And conveniently, if you do not want to use and tie your own leaders, there are other brands out there. Hook manufacturers like Gamakatsu has already some pre-tied leaders up that you can get, and it makes it really simple to just unravel one and go to the next. Now, when it comes to actually selecting a hook for Powerbait, you want one of two things. You want something that has enough of a hook gap that it can give you something to really roll your dough ball around, or you're going to want something that happens to be made for it. And when I mean made for it, some manufacturers have a Powerbait style hook that comes with a little spring, and that little spring will allow you to stuff the dough bait around it. And so conveniently, I like doing my own rig because I know I can trust the knot that I've tied. I don't have to worry about anything else. Makes it super easy to do, and I can tie up an arsenal of riggings and never have to worry about them. So we'll showcase this to you guys with just a typical rig for Powerbait, and I'm running Matsuo hooks. These are a size 8. Sometimes I'll bump it up to a size 6, but generally that's about the size you want. Now you see in front of me too, I have Gamakatsu single egg hook in a size 8. If you like fishing just salmon eggs instead of Powerbait, those will work. I also have circle hooks there by Eagle Claw, but this is your Matsuo one if it'll focus up there. Nice little hook, has a little bit of that sickle bend, which I think keeps the fish hooked a little better, and we'll get this threaded on. So if I'm going to rig this up, I tie my bait style loop, just like I would for salmon steelhead. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 loops. Then you take the tag in, goes back in through, just like so. Now you're left with a little loop, if you can see that. And with that little loop, we then go 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and pull her tight. And now you're left with a really nice tied up bait. That hook is ready to rock and roll. You can keep the tag in. I always clip it off just so there is nothing to be in the way. So now that you got your hook rigged, we can tie it on to our sliding setup with the swivel. Again, I use, if you looked at some of my old videos, the ward knot. Super simple, very strong. The only knot that I use for everything. Now I'm tied up, swivel's ready. Now we come to the actual selection of Powerbait. And you guys can go the traditional route of the dough style bait itself. Is probably a new can, but you undo this and it's actually a dough that you will roll up and form into a ball. It's basically like a putty kind of style. Another great one is made by Potski, and this one's Firebait. This will showcase to you. That's what it looks like. So you roll it up like Play-Doh and make it a ball, form it around your hook, and you go fish. But I have found that there's even other ways to make it easier on yourself. You can get things like Berkeley Gulp. Powerbait also has these that are pre-formed into nuggets. Makes it really easy for trout. Hook one of those, kind of form it around your hook. A lot less on your hands, but there's even an easier way to do it, and that's with what these are. These are the power eggs from Berkeley. And frankly, this is the only thing that I use now for my trout fishing, because these are the simplest things to use. You pinch off however many you want. I usually go with 2. You can match your colors, your scents. There's garlic, all sorts of different ones out there. You can use X Factor tackle. Doesn't really matter, but these float super well and will fish so much easier. So all I do is I thread both of these on, just like so. And I like to expose the hook a little bit. So I thread them up like that. Now the hook's exposed. That fish comes to eat the bait up here. Boom, hook is right on top of them. So just like that, super easy. The other thing that's nice about using power eggs, these things will last a super long time, a lot of fish. So if I change out a color like that, okay, let's say orange wasn't working, I can go put these 2 that I just hooked on my hook back into the jar, seal the jar back up, and they're gonna last. So that's powerbait fishing, guys. Really easy, convenient way to do it, and you can catch a lot of these spring stock trout and have fun doing it. So go check them out on the water, go have some fun, pick up a local little setup, and you're ready to rock and roll, guys. So hope this helps. It's Rick Denham with Holy Moly Outdoors signing off. Take care and fish on.